Now that we have established the overriding myth of Elias Ashmole, let's look at the reality. In a lecture entitled Elias Ashmole, Masonic Hero or Scheming Chancer, the author, historian, and expert on Freemasonry, Dr. Robert Lomas, decided to examine the historical evidence on Ashmole a little more closely and found him decidedly wanting. In keeping with the moral ambiguity of the Magus figure, the warts and all details of Ashmole's rise to wealth and prominence are a lot less glamorous or noble than the Renaissance men like Basilio Ficino, which some of his biographers might want others to believe. Much like fellow Gemini, Donald Trump's ascent from Nepo baby to self promoting property developer with a history of multiple bankruptcies to become the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Ashmole's story also begins with a fairly checkered history. His early life, certainly up until his Saturn return in August 1646, was marred by a series of early tragedies, unfortunate circumstances, and ill fated choices, especially in terms of his political loyalties. However, unlike Trump, Ashmole's story also has a redemption arc. In typically gregarious Gemini fashion, Ashmole was a good networker and a fast learner. He was also a brilliant scholar and a loyal friend, care of his Jupiter in Aquarius and Moon in Taurus, which partially helps to explain his comeback from disgrace and ruin at the end of the Civil War to become a well-respected astrologer, man of letters, and patron of several esteemed and learned institutions. However, in order to explain Lomas's thesis in more depth, let's first back up a little. As Lomas puts it, Ashmole's luck appeared to have run out. He had picked the wrong side of the Civil War, and by late 1646 was out of a job and political favor. Miserable, dejected, and stressed out, he seemed prepared to try anything to improve his situation. Like many of his contemporaries, he wasn't above marrying for money. Having already married and lost a wife who was 14 years his senior, he now set about trying to find a wealthy widow to help restore his fortunes. According to Robert Lomas, during this time, he continually cast new horoscopes, asking if he should get a fortune by a wife without pains and easily. Almost any wealthy widow would have done. Mrs. Cole, Mrs. Minshall, Mrs. Ireland, Mrs. Thornborough, Mrs. March, Lady Fitton, or Lady Manwaring all figure in the erotic and pecuniary dreams that the 29-year-old Ashmole recorded during this period. His diary entries show him to be an inconsiderate and outrageous flirt, as he tried to consummate a speedy marriage to help fill his lean purse. His amorous efforts proved to be all in vain, it would seem, for his next marriage, to a woman 20 years older than him, would only take place in 1649, several years later, and only after he had moved back to London and become a remade man. From an astrological point of view, however, there was some method to his madness. For in his natal chart, Jupiter, the planet of luck and good fortune, rules both the seventh house of marriage and the eighth house of joint resources and inheritances. So it could well be that these efforts arose from a misplaced notion that he was simply enacting his fate, which was to rise to a position of fortune and prominence, Jupiter on the midheaven, via a good marriage. And indeed, this natal configuration did eventually bear out. Ashmole's second wife, Lady Manwaring, who had been thrice widowed, provided him with the fortune necessary to make him an independent man of means, giving him carte blanche to indulge in his favourite pastimes, collecting rare books and focusing on studying his many intellectual interests.